4 years, and she has been such a delight. So I'll hand it over to Laura.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming tonight. So this event, Solar Power Up, is a chance to learn a little bit about subscribing to community solar gardens. We'll have a few experts here. We also have projects out in the hallway that were made by the Red Wing High School students. They got to choose their topics, and they are in the Sustainability Club. This event is put on by the Sustainability Commission. We usually have one event per year right around Earth Week, so we're celebrating Earth Week with this. And I think we will invite Chris Meyer from CERTS to come up. So thank you.
Thank you. This is a great turnout considering the weather. I am Chris Meyer. I'm the Southeast Regional Coordinator for the Clean Energy Resource Teams. I need to find my PowerPoint. There. Ta-da. Okay. So I am the Southeast Regional Coordinator, and I am going to talk today about solar with a focus on community solar gardens. There. Okay, so we'll try that again. All right, so these are the topics that I'm going to try to cover about in the next 30 minutes and then allow a little bit of time for questions. So we could call this Community Solar 101, but before I start, I'm really kind of interested in knowing about the level of expertise in the room. So is there anybody here who, this is the first thing they've heard about community solar gardens and they want to know the absolute basics? Nobody? Oh, a couple people, okay. How many of you think you feel like I have like an intermediate level of knowledge about community solar? Okay, and how many of you are experts on community solar? You've heard, yeah, okay, so we got a lot of people here who really kind of do know. All right, so that's gonna guide some of the areas that I choose to zoom through and the others that I'll spend a little bit more time on. So I am here representing the Clean Energy Resource Teams, or CERTS, and CERTS was created by a special act of the Minnesota State Legislature a little over a decade ago with a mission to help communities to implement community-level clean energy, and that could be renewables, but it can also mean energy efficiency. So CERTS is made up of a series of partners, and those are the logos that you see on that slide. The state is a partner through the Minnesota Department of Commerce, Division of Energy Resources. The University of Minnesota is a partner through the Regional Sustainable Development Partnerships. The Great Plains Institute is a nonprofit that does a lot of energy work, especially in the metro area. And the Southwest Regional Development Commission, which is over in the southwestern corner of the state. The main office for CERTS is on the St. Paul campus of the University of Minnesota. And there's a few bright folks that work there. So the partners give us funding, but the folks who work in the St. Paul office also write a lot of grants with the DOE, with the USDA, with McKnight, to gain money for the organization so that we can advance our mission. We have 7 regions in the state, and each one of the regions has a part-time coordinator, and I am the regional coordinator for the Southeast. I do network and outreach in this part of the state. I live in Winona, and I work out of my home. So that's our mission, to connect communities to resources for clean energy projects. CERTS doesn't do advocacy, but what we do is to build networks, share stories about clean energy projects, focus on issues that bring us together, and we try to advance the University of Minnesota Extension's goals, which are to impact social, economic, and environmental conditions to benefit Minnesotans. So as the owner of a residential PV system myself, and also as a certified residential PV site assessor, I feel that it would be irresponsible for me not to talk about energy efficiency first. The cheapest energy is the energy that you don't use. In fact, research indicates that energy efficiency has been the cheapest source of electricity in the US, and not just compared to renewables, but across all forms of generation. So in the case of a rooftop residential array, you could expect that for every $1 that you invested in energy efficiency first, you would reduce the price by $3 to $5 of a solar system because you'd reduce the size that you needed. These are the 4 categories in this slide, which represent how your energy bill breaks down for your home if you have an average home. Taking actions to reduce energy use for these services is not going to just reduce your costs, it's also going to make your home safer, make it more comfortable, and it'll make it less expensive to live in. These are the projects you'd want to work on in the general order of cost effectiveness. You can see that solar energy is way at the top of the ladder. That's because preparation for solar is really all about energy efficiency. So I have a guide that anyone here tonight can take home for free if you're interested. It's a great book that's been published by the Minnesota Department of Commerce. There's a stack right there. They're free for you to take. And they really cover the things that are listed in these slides, but of course in much greater detail. So it's a great publication. The first step is almost always an energy audit. Whether you have a home or a business, you sort of need to know where you are now before you know what things to do next. So, moving on to renewables and to put clean energy in a context for the state of Minnesota. Minnesota has a long history that goes back several decades of energy efficiency and conservation. Currently, our Conservation Improvement Program asks Xcel to spend and reduce customer electricity use by 2% a year and all other utilities to reduce use by 1.5%. The gas SIP, or Conservation Improvement Efficiency Goal, is 0.5% per year. And we also have, number 3 up there, a renewable energy standard. And you can see what the details are. So there is another policy, number 2, net metering, that affects solar installations in the state. Up to certain installation sizes, which are indicated there, a utility is required to pay customers with on-site solar the retail price of electricity rather than the wholesale price. There are several types of solar technologies, but really I'm only going to talk about solar photovoltaics that generate electricity. I'm not going to talk about the thermal systems that generate heat. Solar installations in the U.S. have seen remarkable growth in the last 5 years. In fact, 2016 had the highest rate of growth so far. And the growth is happening not just in residential, but in commercial and in utility scale implementations. This is in part because the cost of solar panels and the equipment has really fallen drastically. The average price per watt of an installed solar system has continued to decline. In 2016, the cost was about $3.50, and that's down from $8 from about just 10 years ago. So what are the renewable energy options? We have plenty of sun in Minnesota. This is a solar insolation map. The lighter the color, the better the sun. And you can see down in the lower right-hand corner is Germany. And you can see that Minnesota has a much better solar resource than Germany does, even though Germany is going to try and meet 50% of their energy needs by 2030 using solar PV. So we have plenty of sun in the state. However, what the window is at your specific home or at your business is another matter. So you may not have access because of shading, or maybe you don't have space. So a residential or a rooftop array, that's always a choice. But you have to own a home or a building or land to put it on, and it has to have good solar access. And so you've immediately ruled out about 75% of the population. It has a high initial cost. It does provide an opportunity to save money and hedge against future electricity prices. There are incentives and there are tax credits, and it is a very visible renewable energy option. And if that's something that you think you're interested in, just to get a feeling of how your house or how your property might look, you could use the Minnesota Solar Suitability app. It's available, it's hosted at the government, the state government, and you could search for it on the internet, or if I have a sign-up sheet here. And so a number of things that I'm going to talk about, if you give me your email address, I can send you the links so that you'd be able to get to these sites. So the Minnesota Solar Suitability app is hosted by the state, and it was created by the University of Minnesota, master's students using GIS technology. They used LiDAR, and they've created high-resolution 3D maps that include weather and topography to determine the solar resource at a square meter resolution in almost the entire state. And it works a little like Google Maps, where you can enter your address, zoom in, and then click on the exact spot, maybe your rooftop or in your backyard, where you want to put the solar, and you can get a report. On the upper two photos sort of show you how you can zoom in, and you can see on the left where the brightest colors are where the sun is the best. And you can see on the right kind of, so you'd be able to figure out like where your house is. And you could, in this case, I think they probably clicked on that guy's roof. And it will kind of give you a sense of what your solar resource is. It knows what utility you're in. It knows what current rebates are available, and it will try to give you a rough idea of what the payback is. So it doesn't replace a site assessment, but it's a pretty nice tool to at least see if on your home or business it would be feasible to maybe go ahead and actually talk to a solar installer. Community solar gardens, and these are another option and really kind of the main thing that I'm going to talk about tonight. The concept of community solar is that you put a larger solar array in a central location where the solar window is optimized. And then local residents can purchase a share and receive virtual solar energy. In Excel territory, you must have at least 5 subscribers to a community solar garden. No subscriber can take more than 40% of the output. Each subscriber can cover their full energy use, but they can choose to take less. And you can subscribe to any project that's in your county or a contiguous county. In other utility territories, not Excel, what is available is utility-owned community solar. In that case, you really need to find out from the utility what the rules are, and they will be different potentially from what Excel's program offers. So how does it work? There is an operator, a third party, that's going to own the solar array. They're going to sell the electricity to Excel, but the Excel knows that you own a share in that garden if you do, and you will get a bill credit. So the operator handles the relationship with the subscriber, and the utility provides a bill credit. Because you, as a subscriber, are going to have a relationship with the community solar developer, it makes it very important to choose wisely when you pick a garden to subscribe to. So in Excel, these are third parties, and you can shop for different options, and you will join by subscribing with a contract. And the contract will be written by the developer, and they are different between developers, and the developers are not regulated as the utility industry is. The terms of the agreement are normally 25 years, and that is really as a result of the legislation. There are usually exit clauses that could allow you to leave earlier, but there may be fees associated with that, so it's an important consideration. And you do have the possibility of lowering your electric bill, subscribing to solar, and potentially having no initial cost outlay. So it is also important, if you know that your payment for the community solar is tied to the garden's production, that you will only pay when the garden's actually producing. So specifically related to Goodhue County, you might recall that I said you have to be in the county where the garden is or in an adjoining county. So for Goodhue, that means you could subscribe to gardens in Goodhue, Dakota, Rice, Dodge, Olmsted, or Wabasha. And I took a look today at the Excel website to see what was happening. So these are the statistics for Goodhue County in terms of applications, applications in review, how many have been reviewed, how many are in design and construction, and you have 8 completed community solar gardens here in Goodhue County. Dakota has 23 completed. Rice, Dodge, Olmsted, Wabasha don't have any completed gardens, but they all have gardens in construction as of March of 2017. So I got this information from Excel's website. There's a PDF. I made a few copies, and they're up there on the table. But again, I could send you a link to where I got this information from if you are interested. So, developers with solar gardens that could serve Goodhue County, meaning it's in one of those counties that are contiguous. So, I've listed there the community solar developers that are currently selling subscriptions that would be available to a resident of Goodhue County. And there are some others who have gardens that would be available, except they're already sold out. So my next question is, Are there any solar developers in the audience tonight that have gardens that folks here could subscribe to, but I have not shown them on that slide?
Well, we're up there.
Yep, okay, but we do have at least one developer here. Frequently they are in attendance. Okay, so how to get started. The first thing you're going to have to do is figure out how much to buy. A participant could buy as little as 200 watts of solar, or they could buy enough to cover up to 120% of their previous annual electricity usage. And just for perspective, the typical Minnesota home uses about 800 kilowatt hours of electricity every month, or 9,600 kilowatt hours a year. And if you wanted to fill 100% of your needs, you might need to buy about 8 kilowatts of nameplate in a community solar garden. And that assumes that each 1 kilowatt of panels would generate about 1,200 kilowatt hours of electricity per year if it had around 14% capacity factor. So note that you are not physically buying panels. What you're doing is renting a portion of the solar garden and getting credit for the energy that's produced. So you would start with your annual electrical usage. This is what it would be if you're an average home, but you need to look at your electric bills to find out. And then you'd have to ask yourself, how much of my electricity do I want to offset? You could choose to do all of it, or you could choose to do some smaller portion. Let's say you wanted to do 100%. Now, you then would start the process of trying to decide which developer would I want to work with, which has a contract that might meet the needs that I have. And one way to look, CERTS has this thing, it's called the Clean Energy Project Builder. But the other thing you might want to do is go to Excel's website. So this is another document I took a look at today. And I have a few copies of it over there. So I filtered out all but the counties that someone here in Goodhue would be eligible for. And it actually tells you the names of the developers, the status of the gardens, and whether they're taking subscriptions or not. Gives you a website, gives you an email, gives you a phone number. So this would be one place to go to find out what companies have projects that would be available for me. These are some of the things that you'd want to keep in mind when you were comparing between companies. What the contract looks like, what the price is, how can you exit the contract, when is the array going to be done, and when will it start producing? And you'd want to think about all of these questions relative to what your goals and your values are. So back to this slide that I was kind of building on. Let's say that you picked a community solar developer, you picked a contract. This is an example of what is called a pay-as-you-go contract, where the customer will pay 14 cents for each kilowatt hour of electricity that their share of the solar garden generates. And this price is going to increase over time, 2.75% over the 25 years. And that's called the escalator. Now, to explain this a little more, I'll start by talking about the roles and players in any Excel community solar garden. So Excel grants bill credits to you, the subscriber. They purchase the electricity from the garden. And you'll get that on your bill. And the subscriber, that's you, you will also need to pay the solar developer for your share, for your part of the subscription. So if you're, and I'm going to step back just a minute now. So if your solar developer offers something called a pay-up-front model, which is a lot like if you buy panels to put on the roof of your house, right? You'll pay a lump sum immediately. And when the sun shines, you're going to get credit, and you'll get it on your bill at the end of the month, and you won't have any further payments to make to the developer. But that isn't typically how the contracts are working now, because it sort of ends up to be a better deal if you use the pay-as-you-go, because there is no upfront costs. So what happens is you will make a monthly payment to the solar garden developer. And the contract generally has a starting price per kilowatt hour that you will be paying them for the virtual solar electricity. And note that in this particular example, it's 14 cents per kilowatt hour, and it has an escalator, so it's going to increase a little bit every year. All right. Now, Excel is required to pay you for your subscription at something called the applicable retail rate, which starts with the previous year's retail cost of electricity and adds an incentive amount, usually 2 cents. And this rate is typically higher than the rate that you pay this community solar garden developer, as I showed in the previous slide. So upon commissioning, you begin to get a credit on your Excel bill for your share of the community solar garden production. And depending on how large your subscription was and how much electricity you used, your Excel bill may have a balance due. Let's say if you chose to only cover 50% of your electrical needs. But it may be a credit balance if you had elected to cover 100% of your electricity needs. When it's greater than, when the credit is greater than the bill, right, then the credits are rolled forward and they're trued up with a check once a year. So now, this can be a little bit complicated, so I'm going to say it kind of in a slightly different way. Typically, your bill credit from Excel is going to be at a greater price per kilowatt hour than what you pay for your subscription per kilowatt hour to the solar developer. So overall, your total bill is going to be reduced. So in this example, the customer started out with no community solar garden subscription at the top, paying $100.77 for this monthly bill. So they subscribed panels, two panels in a garden that produced 800 kilowatt hours of electricity, and they got a bill credit from Excel at, in this example, 14.596 cents per kilowatt hour. So they have a credit, and the credit is actually greater than the balance of their bill. But they need to pay for their community solar garden subscription. And that price is at 14 cents for each kilowatt hour that they used. So in the end, and this is on the right-hand side in the very bottom, their end net bill is $96 rather than the $100.77 as shown on the left. So ultimately, they've saved $4.77 on their first month's electric bill. That is how it ends up costing you less. So when considering the subscription, which is for 25 years, developers consider that Excel's electricity prices have escalated over time by about 3.5% annually. And so they build an escalator into the price that you pay them for the electricity. And that is typically less than what the historical Excel rate of escalation is. So if Excel's prices, which are the green line, go up faster than the escalator that was assigned by the community solar developer for the subscription contract, right? But what I have to say to you is that the 3.5% historically that Excel's rates have gone up, that is not a guarantee. It depends. I personally think prices will continue to go up. But what happens is that the risk of what Excel's prices will do has been shifted to you, the subscriber, by this particular model. So, to illustrate what that previous graph was showing, if you, the subscriber, had an escalator of 2.75% from the community solar garden developer, and Excel's rates continued to escalate at the higher rate of 3.5%, as it has historically over time, then the savings become greater and greater in the future. And this sort of points out what that would be after the 25 years. Okay, well, if that wasn't complicated enough, the rules have actually changed. They're in the process of changing. So this pre-2017 gardens applicable retail rate plus renewable energy credits, that was how the program started in terms of what the subscribers would be paid for the electricity generated by the solar garden from Excel. And this has been changed. Now, we are still waiting for final regulations, but this will take effect with new applications sometime this year. So can you, sir, could you tell me, do you know exactly when the value of solar goes into effect? Nope. Okay, so we still don't know. All right.
It's in effect for any new applications, but so far there have been no new applications. So
Okay.
any subscription options that you consider are under what Chris has already described.
Yep. And of course, if you have a subscription, they are not going to change the rules once all your contracts are changed. No, that isn't how it will be. And the reason that they're making this move, first of all, you can see, if you look at that bill credit with the question mark, that the number is lower. there's a formula that was devised and approved by Excel that considers all of the elements: avoided costs, not using fuel, maybe not have to build new transmission lines because of distributed generation. It considers a whole lot of factors, and then tries to set a social cost of carbon, and it tries to come up with a number that represents what solar is worth. And so that's what the value of solar rate is. And it's expected that it will create more clarity and reduce risk for subscribers. It's also hoped that it will reduce financing costs for community solar, that it would increase low and moderate income subscriber access, and because it tries to assess an actual value for solar, its adoption should put to rest concerns about fairness between the rate that subscribers are getting paid for community solar and what other utility customers pay. So, I'm almost at the end of what I'm going to say about community solar gardens, other than to tell you that CERTS has tried to act, especially when it comes to this program over the last few years, as an independent party that's not really trying to sell you anything, but that's really just trying to educate folks on what is really a pretty complicated topic. So we have a series of documents that have come out over the past few years, and I have copies of them up on that table right there. You're welcome to pick them up afterwards. But every single one of them is available on the internet at the CERTS website. And again, if you give me your email address, I can send you the links. In addition to the printed documents, we actually have a calculator that that graph that I was showing with the spread of the rates. An applied economist at the University of Minnesota helped us create a calculator that's available online. There's a kit that's for communities with a whole set of kind of different documents. And there's even a section if you are a landowner and you get approached by a community solar developer, a series of documents that can try to help guide you through and give you some information about that process. The last thing I really want to talk about is green pricing. And I have actually had this conversation with someone who called me on the phone and who I tried to kind of go through all the information that I just went through with you, right? And in the end, this is what he decided he would do, was just sign up for WindSource from Excel. So if you're a person who can't put a residential system up for any number of reasons, you don't own a home, you have a terrible solar window, there's this big upfront cost, you can't afford to pay for that. Or if the complexity of the contracts bothers you, if the 25-year subscription bothers you, if there's just reasons why you're just not comfortable signing a community solar contract, then this is a really simple alternative way to support renewables, especially if one is available from your utility, and Excel does have a program. So you're going to pay a small premium to offset your usage with up to 100% of renewable energy, and you can do that online. It doesn't take very long. And you pay for the renewable energy. You don't pay for fossil fuel costs. The average cost is about an additional 85 cents per 100 kilowatt hours. So if you're a typical Minnesota customer, you're going to pay about $6.80 a month extra. And I like this one. It adds renewable energy beyond the state mandate. So community solar gardens are helping Excel to meet their solar mandates. But if you subscribe to green pricing, you're getting them to put additional renewables onto the grid in addition above what our state renewable energy standards are. There's a 1-year initial term, and then you can cancel your contract at any time. So it's compared to a community solar garden subscription, it's a relatively simple thing to do. This is an example of what your bill might look like. You can see that you're getting charged at a little higher rate for the WindSource program, and you can see that you're getting a credit back for your fuel cost charge, so you're not paying for your fossil fuels. So I have a residential PV system, but I buy electricity, especially at night in the winter, and so I'm signed up for WindSource so that I know I'm always getting 100% renewable energy. I just bought an electric vehicle, and I can be sure it's running off of renewables. This chart really tries to do a comparison of solar garden and green pricing. Green pricing is going to have a slight cost, whereas that community solar subscription actually has the potential to save you money on your electric bill. On the other hand, green pricing is over and above the state's renewable energy mandate. It's very easy to sign up. It has a short subscription, and you only have to set up a relationship with the utility, which you already have. So there's no third party involved. Okay, so that's it for what I had to say. I wanted to take a couple minutes to introduce Daniel Enderton. He is from A-Sharp Energy, and Daniel's company is currently testing a beta version of an online software tool that's designed to take some of the complexity out of comparing solar garden subscriptions between companies. So Daniel's going to give a little presentation, and then after that it's questions. So
Great.
Go ahead.
Thanks. All right, I really like how Chris started it, so I'm going to replicate the same model. Who here is subscribed to community solar? One. All right, who here is actively thinking about subscribing to community solar? One more, two more, three more. All right, now we got some numbers. So basically what we're trying to do is, and it's myself, Daniel Enderton, my partner here, Peter, and there's a few other people on our team, but those are the two of us that are here today, is we had the experience of trying to shop for community solar ourselves some 9 months ago, and CERTS does a great job of educating about what community solar is and how it works. And what we felt like there was kind of a missing piece, which was, okay, now I'm interested and now I'm ready. How do I actually understand what my options are and compare them and use that to help make a good choice about a community solar subscription? And so with that in mind, actually, we started our company, A-Sharp Energy, and like Chris said, our initial service is a website that allows you to look for a community solar subscription that is the right one for you. So we're based here in Minnesota. We just got up and running. We've got two providers in our system that are offering subscriptions to residents of Goodhue County and a couple of neighboring counties. One of them is Cooperative Energy Futures. The other one is Community Energy Solar. And so actually, if you have any specific questions about Community Energy Solar, you should talk to Rick. Both of the offerings are actually, we think, quite compelling. We've had people choose both of them. We won't talk about specific terms of anyone's offering in this kind of a setting. You can talk to Rick, or you can go on our system to find those out. What I will say is actually, relative to the example that Chris showed, they're actually more attractive in terms of what you pay. You pay less than that example that she gave, and so we think there's some pretty compelling savings. So I'll just show you very briefly kind of what our website is intended to do. So here, for example, is just our landing page. This is kind of a simple tool to try and estimate, based off how much your monthly electricity bill is, what you might be able to save, the equivalent solar panels from which you'd be getting your solar energy from, and then how much CO2 emissions you would be helping the utility offset as a result of participating in this program. We then have quite a few pages that have to do with just how does community solar work. It's actually a lot of the same material that Chris presented on today. So I won't talk any more about that, but what I will say is actually we've taken the time to review it with actually Chris's colleagues at CERTS, people at the Department of Commerce, people at Excel, people at a number of the environmental NGOs. And the reason is one of the things that we're really trying to do is make sure that we portray everything very accurately and honestly. And so we try and constantly review with the key stakeholders involved to make sure that we're really giving good information to people. And actually, the folks at CERTS have interest in linking to our site from your all's site, which we're pretty excited about. And then the last piece is basically when you're ready, you can then create an account with us and receive quotes from participating providers, such as Community Energy Solar. We don't like to show the actual quotes in a setting like this, but you guys are free to log on or, again, talk with Rick about Community Energy Solar's terms. But basically, when you log on, you can see what's available to you from our participating providers. This kind of gives you just a very high-level overview of what the terms might be, how much you might be able to save, how easy it is to get out of something, what maybe level of certainty there is about the savings. And we actually won't get into it, but basically, if you're interested in any of these quotes, you can click, you can see the full quote. It actually gives you all the details. It gives you some nice graphs, some nice tables, and you can use that to help make your decision. And when you're in here, we don't provide your information to the participating providers until you select their quote. And so it's meant to actually be a very kind of a hassle-free way of shopping, right? And so then, like, just to kind of wrap it up then, like Chris said, basically we just started. We've been live for a couple of months. We've helped a number of people find subscriptions already. If this is something you are interested in using, feel free to just go to our website, asharpenergy.com. Alternatively, come and find us afterwards, because we're actually at the stage where we're looking to solicit a lot of feedback on our service and try and make it better. So if you're interested in using it to find a community solar subscription, let us know, and we would love to just come and meet you at a coffee shop and just get your feedback on our service to help make it better. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Chris.
Actually, we were going to have Rick come up.
Oh, great.
And
Great.
give Rick a few moments to be able to explain his services with community energy.
Great.
All right, I as well have a PowerPoint here. If I can get back to it here, this might be difficult, but and I think we had some Oriental marketing people sign our logo there. Happy Earth Week. Anyway, Happy Earth Week and Earth Day. It's kind of an opportunity here. This is basically my hometown area. I lived in Welch Township for about 35 years. And just a few years ago, jumped across the state line. I now have a place over at Maiden Rock, where my wife and I live currently. We've been in this area for a long time. I was have a real estate background and kind of fell into the solar energy industry, and as a solar developer now is my official title. What I really do was one of the first people out there talking to landowners about where to place solar farms. Goodhue County was one of the first counties to actually move forward with a solar ordinance in the state of Minnesota. So they got kind of, we had some good opportunities here with some landowners. We have an existing site that'll start construction this summer near Zumbrota. We are selling subscriptions to that particular solar farm at the moment. Typically these hold about 200 to 225 subscriptions per solar garden. Our Zumbrota site is pretty well sold out already. We have about 40 subscriptions remaining in that garden. We also have garden projects coming up in Wabasha County, and we've got one in Rice County, the Rice County project, as well as an advanced stage of, and I think they're listing that now as sold out. So, but our company, Community Energy Solar, we've been in the renewable energy industry for 17 years with both wind and solar. We sold our wind division a little over a year and close to a year and a half ago, and focused strictly on solar energy development. Our company is also, besides the solar gardens and other projects around the country, we have the largest solar farm in the upper Midwest, the North Star project up by North Branch, Minnesota, which is 100 megawatts in size and is about 1,000 acres in size. That is up and operating. That went online in December. If you actually want to tour a very large site, just go over by North Branch. You could look up North Star Solar on the internet, get directions to it. It's a pretty spectacular demonstration of what a large-scale solar farm looks like. You're seeing the smaller 1 megawatt sites all around the country right now. As I say, there are 8 already operational in this area. We're going to quickly move on here. Pretty much went through how this stuff all works. These guys have made it really simple to try to understand it. When we first started into this project about 2 years ago, nobody understood it. Even us as the developers didn't really know how this was going to work. Many folks got tied up with the legislature trying to help figure out how to make it work. CERTS took an advanced position and really came to the forefront in helping folks figure it out. But right now, it is open to anyone. If you're an Excel customer, the cooperatives are just starting to do some other local programs in the state. This particular program, you have to be an existing Excel Energy customer. Oops, I went the wrong way here. The biggest advantage right now, besides participating in renewable energies, is lowering your electrical bills by up to 25% over the cost of the program. What and how our particular company works in the pricing structure here, we're probably one of the least expensive in the marketplace, and our what we call our cost escalation factor is one of the lowest in the marketplace. So as the program goes on, our savings are going to be more than what many of the other competitors are going to have. We do have one downfall, and that's if you sign up and a year later you want to get out, it might cost you $1,200 or something to get out. So after 2.5 or 3 years, that figure kind of works itself out, and there's no longer any cost to get out of this. One big advantage if you do sign up, yes, it's a 25-year contract at a minimum, is it becomes an asset to your house, and you can sell your participation and subscription when you sell the house as a positive for that. Because technically right now we expect that out of all of the Excel customers in the state of Minnesota, only about 5% of those folks are going to be able to buy into this program because there isn't that much going to be developed, and there aren't going to be that many subscriptions. And as we're saying right now, the projects we've got online in this area right now, we've got, for our Zumbrota site, we've got 40 more positions available in that. And I think we might be one of the few left with residential subscriptions in the county here. So about 170 total subscriptions available. 130 households have already sold up. We've got 40 spots left at our Zumbrota site. This graph kind of gives you a comparison of our annual escalator is 1.9%. As I said, kind of an average they used before was 2.75%. And I believe last year Excel's price increase was about 5%. Okay, so some of these numbers I just ran through. Easiest way to sign up is to go online, Community Solar, Community Energy Inc., or if you just Google us, Community Solar Inc., you'll come up to our website. I will have a sign-up sheet up here if you have some interest and would like to be contacted, and I've got some little information sheets of this PowerPoint that we've got here as well. Also, you can talk to me. I am not the salesman. I'm not going to sign you up. I can try to answer some questions for you. My position has been the developer, and I came here tonight because I just live across the river over here, and this is my backyard. Thank you.